That is hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register, hillsdale.edu/lockedon. The Guards lost in 5 games to the Yankees, the final 2 games of that series in Cleveland, both coming down to the wire. Jason, what was your big takeaway from these 5-game set? Well, all 3 games, but the last 2, we talked about game 3 on Friday at length. We didn't talk game 4 and 5 because it happened after our last show. But Jason, what was your big takeaway from the Guardians' 5-game series loss to the Yankees?
They're right there. They're really not that far away, and you can talk about payroll disparity and all of that, but the on-field product tells you that they were a couple plays away in pretty much every game, and those 3 games in Cleveland were phenomenal games, all of them. Decided in the late innings. Brian Rocchio had a couple really critical errors late in the game that cost him a lot of runs. Clase wasn't Clase, although I thought it was encouraging for him in the final game to come back, and he looked like himself against Judge and Stanton and was hitting his spots with cutters. Got rid of the slider and basically threw all cutters to both of those guys.
And he should have.
And he should have. And he hit his spots, kept it out of the middle of the plate. And the Yankees don't miss mistakes, man. Like, there was a few pitches that they missed because, I'm watching the pitch tracks as they go and seeing where they land. And there was a couple times where a pitcher would hang one and the guy missed. But it wasn't very often. And they hit really good pitches, too. The home run that Judge hit off Clase was a good pitch. Like, Clase hit a spot on the outside part of the plate, and Judge still hammered into the seats. The pitch that Juan Soto hit out was a good pitch. There's not many guys who can take a fastball from that spot and hit it 405 feet to dead center field. But the Guardians are close. They're not that far away. The thing that I am concerned about, and this might be spinning it too far ahead for where you want to go with this, I am very worried about the starting pitching going forward. I don't know, where they're going to come up with enough arms. This team has never needed pitching. That's been the last thing they need because it's so expensive. They've geared the organization to always have pitching, and I'm very concerned about the starting pitching going forward, and the division's getting better and all that stuff. But from this series, I thought the Guardians, yes, the Yankees were the better team, but the Guardians hung with them pitch for pitch until the very end, and had they gotten a few more key hits from Jose, had Emmanuel pitched the way that we know he's capable of, had they gotten a little bit more out of Naylor, like I said, the Rocchio errors, 1 or 2 of those errors really cost them.
They were not going to turn a double play on that, by the way.
You don't think?
That was a huge mistake by him.
Big mistake, but
he took his eye off the ball.
You're absolutely right, but they get 1 out there. They don't get 2.
Right, but if they get the 1 out, then Soto never comes to the plate.
Well, no.
Yeah, because Soto hit the home run with 2 outs.
Yeah, so if he gets 1 out on that play,
right,
Torres then got out. That would have been the 3rd.
Yeah, but now we're assuming that things happen the same way.
You never know.
Do that.
Yeah, that's fair.
I was just saying in theory.
Right, exactly.
Potentially.
What I'm saying is it doesn't get them out of that inning.
Can I say this?
No,
because they're not turning a double play.
But there's a decent chance they would have gotten out the inning without Soto coming to bat.
And by the way, they were so great defensively up the middle. Like,
I'm not killing him.
You can't kill him.
Can I say this?
He was unbelievable defensively in this series.
For me,
I don't know.
I just think, man, it's frustrating because when I look at it, it's just me just looking at it just from 1,000 miles away. It just seems like, even when you watch that series, it seems like when you watch the Yankees, there's room for error. If they don't run the bases that well,
they run the bases like drunken sailors.
Right.
Last team in Major League Baseball, by whatever metric they use for that.
If they don't handle defensively as well as some other teams, they have room for error based on what they got in that middle lineup.
Well, they made a mistake that led to our second run. An error.
So my thing is, the Guardians, as constituted and the way they run their organization, the Guardians can't make mistakes.
Right.
All their hitters have to hit. Ramirez and Naylor have to hit. Their bullpen has to be lights out. Clase can't mess up or whatever. You have to get good starting pitching from guys that either were out of the league or the DL, or you got them from somewhere else that really wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
For me, it's frustrating because I know that the Guardians gave everything they had. I can't sit here and say they didn't leave it on the field. They exhausted everything they had. They gave it, put it on the field. But if they would just get a little something, a little boost from the owner and give them, can you imagine if they had just one more big bat to go with Naylor and Ramirez?
Your point, because I agree with you, and this is from a former producer of mine, Mark Lowry, very, very smart baseball mind. I want to read this to you. This is his take on the game. Tonight, the Guardians did a great job containing the Yankees' $40 million player. But their $32 million player and their $31 million player hit home runs off our pitchers who make 2.5% of their salaries. I did the math. The Yanks paid tonight's pitchers over $32 million this year. I'd love to be their GM, who, by the way, is the worst in the history of baseball. Baseball is and always has been broken. I'm proud of the Guardians for making it to the ALCS and having 5 competitive games, which they did, against a team whose payroll is $203 million more than theirs.
Yeah, I don't agree with everything your friend said, but I think he makes some good points.
Let's go point by point.
Well,
I agree with everything. Baseball is broken.
I think Brian Cashman, say he's the worst GM ever. That's silly.
But when you look at what he has spent,
Jay,
you could say he's the Jimmy Haslam of the NFL.
No, that's not fair.
Look at the money they've spent since '09. What do they have?
You know as well as anybody that once you get to
baseball.
Once you get to the playoffs, it's kind of random.
It is, but when you have a 15-year stretch of spending that every year, you've got to hit in one of those.
I have been, when I was working in New York even, I was always, while everybody else kissed Brian Cashman's ass, I was always critical of him. He is a highly overrated GM. To say he's the worst GM in baseball
that's hyperbole.
is silly.
We're arguing
about
it, but he's not.
The point
He's
is,
spent more than any GM in 15 years and hasn't won.
Here's the problem when it comes to, part of the problem when it comes to the baseball conversation, is that I feel like fans get mad at the Yankees and Dodgers and Red Sox and Mets.
I don't.
But you're right. But most fans,
I get mad at baseball for allowing it to happen.
I'm mad at baseball, but I'm mad at the law. The Dolan can spend more money.
Yes,
he is choosing.
He
not
can never
to
spend what
money.
they spend ever.
Nobody's saying that,
and he doesn't need to win. By the way,
the Yankees could spend another $100 million and would still be making money half.
Are they going to sign Soto?
Probably.
What's that going to cost? $750 million?
But here's the thing. You see, the Guardian, you talk about it. Like, in this series, if you're a casual baseball fan, or if you're a Yankee fan that never watches the Guardians, and you just watch this series, you're going to say, well, there's a big gap between these teams. And to me, there's not.
Oh, I don't think there is at all.
No, I don't think there.
Every single game was competitive. The Yankees knew they were in a series.
But I'm telling you, Yankee fans that don't watch the Guardians, that are just Yankee fans, not diehard baseball.
Sure, they think they dumped us.
They think it's easy. I had Yankee fans in my chat when I was doing post game shows saying you play in an easy division. Like they don't know.
That's uneducated.
They don't know what's going on, right? So, but they are close. Yes, the payroll is a hindrance, but if they just raise the payroll $150 million,
that's all I'm asking.
I couldn't agree more with you.
Yes,
I couldn't agree more with you. I am not a Dolan apologist by any stretch of the imagination, but I will say this: we are geographically hindered.
Agreed.
And it's the only sport, really. You could argue that in the NBA there is a geographic advantage because guys want to play in Miami and they want to live in certain locales and they don't want to live in northern cold cities. I get that.
Yeah.
But you're not playing the games outside. What is wrong with baseball is that, and I don't know if you guys caught this, in the 5th or 6th inning of Game 5, baseball ran the wrong promotional series.
I saw that.
Did you catch it?
Yeah, the Yankees-Dodgers.
The game wasn't over. That promo was built and ready to go on the last out.
Yeah.
Here we go. And you really couldn't even run it because the Mets.
The Dodgers didn't lose till Sunday.
Exactly.
Didn't win till Sunday, excuse me.
This promotion was made to run the last out of the LCS, the last LCS playing was made, and it was indeed the Yankees and the Dodgers. Do you think they made a promo for the Mets Guardians?
No.
I bet they didn't. I bet they didn't.
Yeah.
Now, I have a little insight because I've worked inside that division and I know how it works. And trust me when I tell you, to a man and woman, everybody in the Fox baseball division was rooting for what we got.
Yeah.
And to a man, everybody involved in Major League Baseball got exactly what they wanted.
Which I understand. I understand that. Yeah.
I get it. Now, I was trying to explain to a group of people yesterday why that's the case. Well, it's not like that in the NFL. In the NFL, the TV money is national. The ratings are going to be what they are because the product is just a better
in
product.
every other sport, it's the markets.
We just
100%.
We just told you the NFL is a religion.
That's why the
people are going to watch. It doesn't matter.
Yes,
they root for Green Bay to make it to the Super Bowl.
Yes.
They're the 70th market. They root for Green Bay,
right?
Because they do have a national following. On and on. My point in all of this is, baseball it's broken because it encourages the big markets to win because the World Series ratings sets the financial dollars for all 30 teams, and that pot is split.
Right.
They do not want the small markets in because it could be a ratings disaster. It could. But Dolan is not completely off the hook. He can't spend what the Mets, Yankees, and Dodgers spend.
Right.
He never can. He never will. He can spend more than what he's spending. And that's where the blame is on him.
That's right.
This team did all it could. We've got 2 bats superstars. They both failed miserably in the 5-game series. That's baseball.
Yeah.
That can happen. But when, like he said, their $40 million player we contained. Their $32 million player and their $31 million player we did not.
Couldn't hand that for him.
So
Couldn't hand that for it.
if you're the Guardians, and we said this all year, they're going to need another bigger bat. Now, look at the buttons that the front office put.
And they hit on Thomas.
Thomas came
they
in
hit
here.
on Cobb. They hit on Boyd. they hit on.
Listen. The front office hasn't been perfect.
But they hit on
No,
those
they
guys.
haven't been perfect, but Bull,
yeah.
they made 2 moves before the break. 3, really.
Yeah.
And they all hit.
They all were contributors
Yes.
in the series. Right. Now, where the owner needs to step forward and the owner needs to say, you'd have to have a triumvirate of bats. So there are no holes in the lineup. I'm watching the game as if I'm pitching. How am I throwing this guy? How am I throwing this guy? Who do I avoid? With the Yankees, you can't work around him. You can't work around him.
Torres hits
Rizzo
the ball.
comes in down at the bottom.
Rizzo
I knew was going to kill us. He did.
Right.
And so you've got 4 easy outs in our lineup most nights. The Yankees, even though they have easy outs in their lineup, they have behemoths in their lineup that will strangle the life out of you, and that's what they did.
It felt like every single time I was watching the broadcast, the announcer would be like, and we got Soto,
Uh-oh, here he
Judge,
comes.
and Stan. I said they was just up.
Yeah.
Because
their lineup flips in a hurry.
Is they batting twice an inning?
It did feel like that.
He put on
And-
Judge's uniform.
I'm like, dang,
and their
bro.
others are better than the Guardians' others, and that's it. And you don't even have to spend crazy money.
No.
I was talking about this morning with Zach. You could trade for Brent Rooker of Oakland, right? This is the guy who's hit 30 home runs 2 years in a row.
Right.
This past year, he drove over 100 runs on the A's.
I know.
Okay?
He had a 933 OPS.
You could trade for him. You could trade for Garrett Crochet of the White Sox. Where are the White Sox going? They'll
Nowhere.
trade within the division. You give them a good enough deal. That guy's one of the. Now you got an ace.
Yeah.
Okay? And I don't want to hear about Tanner Bybee being an ace. Let him be an ace. Fine. Let's have 2 aces. Let's have 3 aces.
Right.
Then you can sign it for you. They have to have a real right fielder. I know everybody's excited about John Kenzie. He's not an everyday player.
I agree with you.
I don't think he's going to be.
No, he's not.
And you know what? If he becomes good enough to be an everyday player, let that be a problem.
Sure, I would love
let
to have
that
that
be a
problem.
problem.
Can I say this? By the way, is it only me? The Royals and the Tigers ain't going nowhere.
No, they're not.
No.
They're not going anywhere.
No.
The Tigers, they got these young dudes and they got experience. These dudes, now think about it. What if they spend a little bit of money?
And Job is coming as an ace quality type pitcher.
Yeah, I could this offseason, without spending a crazy amount of money, I could sign Teoscar Hernandez to be my DH.
Right.
I could move Kyle Manzardo to first base. I move on from Naylor. He's going to be gone at the end of the year anyway.
Next year.
At the end of next year. I trade for Brent Rooker. Well, I guess I guess Teoscar is going to have to play the outfield, and Brent Rooker is going to be the DH. Whatever. I can live with a crappy outfielder if he can hit 35 freaking home runs.
Would you trade?
I could sign Freddie Garcia.
Would you trade
as a
Josh
free agent?
Naylor?
Yeah,
I would.
You're not going to get a lot for him. He's got 1 year left
No.
on his deal.
Yeah,
It's time for Kyle Manzardo to play first base.
I agree with that.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't know that they've got the prospect capital to get the guys you're talking about. There's other teams that have better that can outkick.
But
them.
that's a
there
criticism of the front office. They've sat on their hands on these prospects
Yep.
for too long,
And
and
they've
a
lost
lot of them
value.
have lost their
I
stature.
still think there's capital. There are teams that are better positioned with their minor league system, but I still think we've got names, we've got capital, we've got pieces we can move.
You trade Chase DeLauder?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm trading
Yes.
anybody.
Yes.
You trade Travis Bazzana?
No,
Jason,
no.
I'm just saying. These are the guys.
Get proven. I'm sick of hearing about prospects.
Yes,
I
hear
want
you.
proven players.
I'm with you, but I'm just saying, if you're trying to get Garrett Crochet, they're going to say Chase DeLauder and Travis Bazzana.
Done. Let's go.
Here's the deal: the Tigers and the Royals and 12 other teams are also going to be looking at these guys too.
That's right.
So you're going to have to. It's probably going to raise the price, but you've got to pay the price. And I know that we're talking about trades. I still think they have to go out, even though they've been burned the last couple of times they've done it. They need to hit the free agent
But
market.
they shop in the bargain bin. That's
not
why they
gonna
get
happen.
burned.
Well,
not
Lane
gonna
Thomas
happen.
was a hit. I know it was
No,
a
but
trade,
I'm saying
but
in free agency, it's almost always the bargain
they're not
bin.
going to be in the Soto sweepstakes.
Fine.
They're not. I mean,
go sign Corbin Burns.
I would
They're
be.
not gonna
Yeah, I
do-
would
they're
love
not
that.
going to do that.
They're not going to
No,
do
they're
that.
not.
They're
No,
gonna
but
do
you know
that.
what? That's even too high.
Some of these
He'll
second-tier
get $20
pitchers.
million a year.
Go
25
sign
million a
Freddie
year.
Garcia. He's a good, solid pitcher.
When Freddie or Frankie got away, the Guardians ownership said, we're going to reinvest this money. We're going to put it back in the franchise.
Let me ask
They
you.
have not.
No.
If they had, if they still had Francisco Lindor, do they have a better chance of beating the Yankees?
Of course.
Yeah.
Better, yes.
And,
Yeah.
and really what it comes down, it's not, for me, it's not about going out and signing free agents, because I just don't think that's a world they're ever going to live in. Not the guys you're talking about. It's the ability to retain the guys that you do hit on and develop. They can't retain those. They're not retaining those guys. And then they sign Jimenez and he doesn't live up to the contract.
Yeah, that hurt.
But-
Well, they and they
And Jose,
Well, they
I
kept
don't want
Jose,
Jose.
I mean-
Jose gave
because
back
only because he
tens
took
of
them.
millions.
I know he did.
Yeah.
I know he did, but that's-
apparently Bybee was willing to sign a pretty reasonable extension last year, according to Zach, and the Guardians wouldn't do it.
And see, with pitching,
Yeah.
I don't blame him.
The risk of-
I would not sign another pitcher to a long-term deal.
I mean,
I wouldn't.
They should have
look
signed
at what's
Steven
happened.
Kwan last year.
Look
Now-
what's happened.
Yeah.
With
They-
McKenzie, with Bieber.
Kwan, they should have. Yeah, Kwan's a guy that. And again, it's probably too late on him. He's going to he's headed arbitration now.
Yeah.
Tanner Bybee's going to arbitration.
Hold on. Hey, run that by y'all baseball dudes talking too fast. What's going on with Quan? What's the deal?
Well, he's got
Long-term is
plenty.
probably
He's
not
going to
here.
start making more money now.
No,
Yep.
okay. How many more years he got on his deal?
3. He's got 3 years of arbitration coming.
Okay, well, I'll take 3 years.
Well, you're not going to have 3 years
But
because they'll.
here's the thing: we're too.
Oh,
I feel like we let the front office to some degree, mostly ownership, off the hook too easy by not demand. Like, I know if we demand they spend money, it's not going to do anything. But like, we're just like, well, they're not going to do it. So what are you going to do? You got to find another way. That's not acceptable.
I'm just living in reality.
Yeah.
I want them to do it, but they're not.
I had conversations with people about Teoscar, and it's when you like the miss on Josh Bell, and then you have to eat some of that
And
money.
Zunino.
And the miss on Zunino, and then and the money.
Yeah.
Like if you cobble all those together, it gets you Teoscar Hernandez.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
But that's with hindsight being 2020, and when you're trying to chop it up here.
It's not hindsight being 2020. Teoscar Hernandez, Josh Bell's been up and down his whole career.
I know, but we were all excited when they
We
signed
were,
him.
because
We
you
were.
thought he had a
and
chance
so were
to be
they,
good.
and he just flopped.
But Teoscar Hernandez has a good year every year.
But they had already lost the money on Bell. They were already out that
So
money.
what?
I'm just
I don't
saying.
care.
It's-
See, Bull, that's the difference, and that's
Yeah.
why baseball is broken. A team like the Guardians pay heavily for their mistakes. They can't buy their way out like the Yankees can. And the reason that I think Brian Cashman is looked at by some as the worst is because every mistake he's made, he just is given a bigger check by ownership to go make it right.
Agreed. That's
And we
true.
don't have that luxury. We're playing on a different field.
But we have more of a luxury than we do. There should be more of a luxury.
There should be, but Jason, I don't know what your thoughts are on this. We were talking about this last week, and Steve, our coordinating producer, sent an article that had the worth of the Dolans.
Yeah, I know that's
the mistake
meaningless.
that people make is if they Google him and they see his worth. His worth is the price of the team.
Yeah.
That's not a liquid asset.
No.
This man is check to check.
They're attorneys.
They're attorneys.
Oh,
It's
stop.
not-
They're not regular attorneys. They've got
Bull,
plenty of money. They own a baseball team.
They made the money on the Cablevision stock, and that's how
Yes,
they bought the team.
and they bought the team.
Are
but
they
here's
not
the
making
difference.
money every year? Tons of
Bull,
money.
Bull, they
I
are.
already wrote the article about
Yeah.
all the revenue streams that come into
Exactly.
the team. And yes, I believe there's
They
more
are,
they could be
but Bull,
spending.
at the point that everybody thinks that they can say, "Whoa, look at he's worth $5 billion."
He's not
No, he's
David
not.
But I'm not-
Blitzer.
I'm not looking
he's
at
not
that.
Dan Gilbert. He's not Jimmy
not- he
Haslam.
doesn't have a pile of money like our other two owners.
But you guys say that as if we're asking him to be those guys. I'm not.
Where's the money going to come from?
Where did the money come from for Matt Dolan doing 2 political campaigns? That's tons of money.
Who knows? I don't care about that. I care about
But
the
that's his
baseball
family.
team.
He could have spent that money on
Who
baseball.
cares? I mean, there's political action committees that raise money for candidates
I
and
actually
give
know how
them
much money they gave. I don't remember now off the top of my head, but we did look into that. How much money they gave.
It wasn't huge.
It's not.
No, and that's neither
So
here nor
you're
there.
saying they don't have enough money to raise the payroll?
No, we both said that they should.
They should, but what I'm saying is this ownership group is different than most. Most are independently wealthy without valuing in the value of the franchise they own. This group is worth what the team is worth. That only liquid if they sell it.
That's right.
That we know of.
That's true.
Dan Gilbert and Jimmy Haslam have a pile of money separate from their equity in the team.
So then sell the team.
Listen,
and they're in the process of it.
Thank you.
If you can't afford to be competitive financially,
and when
then
the
sell
Blitzer
team.
group takes full ownership, the field changes dramatically.
They're in, they're not spending any money.
It may not change for the better. Like, be careful with that.
So here's my understanding of it. You can correct me if I'm wrong. When I say it changes dramatically, I mean the available funds to put together a team on the field. I think the more I'm hearing, I think the Blitzer group made a business decision because the landscape of sports ownership has changed in the last 10 years.
Absolutely.
We're seeing it here.
It's
not just the team. It's about the monopoly pieces on the board around Park Place.
Right. Yeah.
So the team is the centerpiece, but the team adds value if the land surrounding the stadium where 2 million fans congregated this year, you've got a 2 million person magnet sitting on East 9th, Carnegie, and Ontario.
Yep.
You're not monopolizing that if you don't own the adjacent land and you're not drawing money off of that. That's why Jimmy Haslam is moving. That's why the LA complex, and really Jimmy to an extent, but not as much. But what's going on in Atlanta and Las Vegas
Wrigley
and LA.
Field, they did the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is the new landscape of professional sports.
100%.
And so the Blitzer group is smart seeing, the sports team is the centerpiece, but there's a ton of money to be made around that. Now, I'm not sitting here and saying I can assure you that the Blitzer group is going to pour money into this payroll. I can't. All I can tell you is once they own the team, you're not digging through the couch cushions for nickels and quarters to put a team together. He is independently wealthy. He owns tons of things. If he wants to write checks to bring in Juan Soto, he can do that. Our owner can never do that.
Why,
and I'm not saying he will, Jason.
Why would he? If people go to the game.
Why would he?
Because here's the thing: the Guardians have shown you they can win with nothing. So they
can't. No.
They're their own worst enemy. If you don't,
They can be competitive, not win.
They haven't won anything.
Winning is
76
winning.
years.
What I'm saying, we think of winning. Businessmen think of winning in the money spent and the money taken out. The money being put into it is way less than what they're
You're right, but
out.
they could make a lot more money. I mean, there was a time, I know the Browns were, the Guardians have an opportunity right now. The Browns, people's feeling about the Browns is probably as low as it's been in a long time. I think even lower than the 0-16 debacle.
I'm in line with you, but I've said that to people, and they're like, no way, you forgot the pain of 0-16. The difference is we expected something from this group.
Yes.
We traded for our franchise quarterback.
Can you imagine, people, it was the best attendance for the Guardians in 15 years, 17 years?
Going back, I think, to the early to mid
2006, wasn't it?
It's a good opportunity.
07 maybe?
Great opportunity.
If they spend some money and they bring in reinforcements, there will be a First of all, part of the problem is, I was talking to Zach today. We were talking about, doing the Ultimate Guardian show during the offseason. And I was like, well, when they had, if we were doing the Ultimate Yankee show or the Ultimate Met show, there'd be news all the time.
Agree.
But the Guardians create no buzz in the offseason because they never do anything or rarely do anything. And and they have an opportunity. I can't get into the Cavs right now. We will eventually, but I'm not excited to watch the Cavs play their first regular season game.
Real quick, Mike. I know Mike's trying to move on, but I have to get this in.
Yep, last point.
Not many owners reach into their own pockets to deficit spend. They don't. They spend
We've got
with the
two
team.
here that do.
Well, Dan Gilbert, I think it was $50 million he lost out of his own pocket the year of the championship.
Jimmy Haslam too.
That's very rare. And Haslam,
I don't care. I give him no credit for that.
Okay, I'm just saying.
I'm just saying too.
Okay, fine, but that's not the standard. The standard is what comes in is what goes out.
There you go.
I do think that
go.
there is more when Blitzer comes in. I do think there will be an opportunity to spend a little bit more because I do think that there's some coffers in there that are stuff that. But I also and I wrote about this. For all the criticisms of the Dolans, they still run the best team in town. Period. There is
100%.
no debate. And it's because of the way they hire smart people and they get out of the way and they let them lead. Do you ever hear anyone make fun of the Ivy Leaguers that the Guardians have? No.
No, but they're killing the Browns Ivy Leaguers.
They kill them because the Browns don't win and the Guardians do.
You're right.
And when new ownership comes in, they may spend more money, but that doesn't mean that they will have the stability and the health within the organization that the Guardians do. So be careful what you wish for.
I agree with that.
Because you may get more money, but it may be Dan Gilbert type of money where everybody gets fired.
That's a good point.
And Jimmy Haslam money where
That's a
everybody
good
gets
point.
fired every 3
Now,
years.
That's a good point.
Now, money only gets you so far.
That's
I
a good
will
point.
say the best thing about what's going on, and I happen to have some inside information on this, but the best thing about what's going on here is the transition period is a long one. The Blitzer group gets more and more equity each year.
Right.
Here's why that's valuable. They're on board. By the way, they're in town for these games. They are in town for those games. They were there this weekend. They're seeing up front and in real time how this group works. They're smart, too.
Yeah.
They're very smart. I know that they're smart inside the Blitzer group. If they're really smart, when they do take over, the only thing that's going to change is the size of the checkbook.
Leave everything else the same.
Leave everything else the same.
I agree.
And even as players go, as personnel people come and go, as Antonetti may one day decide to retire, he will, or go to another team, he's got to be replaced. Find the guy most like him. And just, now it's plug and play.
Well, then Mike Chernoff just goes up another.
But it's very
Chernoff
rare.
does too, but somebody has to, it's
sure.
it
And
feeds
they've
from
done
the
that
bottom.
already.
They've done it already.
And maybe they do that. But most owners buy the team
And then want to do it
to
their
play
way.
real life fantasy football or
Yeah.
real life fantasy baseball. They want to be involved. Jimmy Haslam's involved. Dan Gilbert pre-stroke
I
was
don't
involved.
believe
He's
that
getting
this
back
is.
involved.
I don't believe that. I
I
could
get
be
what you're
wrong.
saying.
I hope you're right.
Tell
I hope
us.
you're
you're right.
Most owners want to
And
be
Dolan
very involved.
does a good job overall, but his lack of spending is a major negative against him.
It is.
There's no doubt.
It is. He's
There's
not
no
spending
defending
enough to get the team over the hump.
Yeah.
21, 23 payroll can get you into the dance. What it's proven is it can't get you to the top of the dance. Not
we'll
yet.
look at